What's shaking, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Gardner Oat, founder and CEO of Gems Intercontinental, an abbreviation for Gardner's English Mastery School Intercontinental, where we learn English the practical and conversational way. So without wasting a lot of time, today I am back again with another exciting episode on everyday conversations. And to be very specific, we'll be looking at phrases to use when asking someone how they are doing, without always saying how are you, definitely. So I'll be giving you phrases, at least 10 phrases that you can use to ask someone how they are doing without sounding so normal or so natural. Without wasting time, let's dive in. The first phrase has to be, how have you been since we last spoke? Now, this particular phrase shows you remember the person and value continuity instead of the automatic or usual way of saying how are you. You invite a more meaningful update, right? And you really need to use this when you haven't connected with someone in a while. It is ideal in networking, professional catch-ups, or with acquaintances. Okay, so you use a warm, friendly tone. Mention the context if known. For example, since we last met at the conference, or since our last coffee. So you sound like, or rather you come off this way: how have you been since we last spoke? Or rather, how have you been since we last met at the conference? How have you been since our last coffee date? Alright, definitely. Let's get to the next phrase. What's on your mind today? This particular phrase signals that you are interested not just in surface level well-being, but in their inner state. According to research, people with higher emotional intelligence tend to use questions that invite deeper sharing rather than quick affirmations. Alright, so be sure to use this particular phrase whenever you need deeper sharing compared to quick affirmations and yes or no answers or yes or no feedback. Now, use this particular phrase when the person seems thoughtful, number one, quiet, or you sense they might have something on their mind. Now, you need to say it with a gentle, slightly curious tone and pause briefly before today to allow the other person to reflect. So use eye contact and open posture if you are in person. Now, this is how you put it out. What's on your mind today? Perfect. Let's get to the next phrase. Just give me yep. So what's one good thing that happened this week? What's one good thing that happened this week? This is a positivity oriented check-in, which aligns with research showing language naturally has a positivity bias. In other words, what do I mean? It also gives the other person an easy entry point into something meaningful rather than, everything's fine as a response. Okay, you would want to be, or rather come out as being positive oriented all the time whenever you're using this particular phrase. And of course, that also encourages the other person to give you, deeper and more positive insights, or rather more information. Of course, building the conversation in a meaningful way. Remember to use it in a casual, social, or semi-professional setting where you'd like to shift the conversation toward positivity rather than, just workload or stress. The goal is to be positive at all times whenever you want to use this phrase. So you use an upbeat tone and a slight smile or nod to emphasize. Alright? To emphasize. Remember to keep it simple and manageable. So what's one good thing that happened this week? Definitely. Let's get to the next phrase. How are things going with dash dash dash? How are things going with dash dash dash? At the very end, you put in a specific project or a role. And this kind of question signals active listening and personal attention, which builds connection and credibility. Remember, conversational skill guides emphasize that specificity beats generality in making people feel seen. Always be specific, okay? Don't be general whenever approaching conversations with people. So you use this particular phrase when you have prior knowledge of their situation, okay? or you need to at least have some idea of what has been happening on their end. You could be like, how are things going on with your new job, right? Or how are things going on with the new house that you're constructing in the village? Or how are things going on with the new role that you landed in this movie, right? And then definitely it gives them a platform to share more info, deeper insight compared to the usual way of just saying hi to somebody, right? Now, you remember to use a tone of genuine interest, mention the specific project or role by name to show that you're paying attention. Perfect. Let's get to the next phrase. What have you been doing lately that you are enjoying? Now, this particular phrase, remember, people often engage in many tasks without sharing what gives them joy, okay? And this question allows the conversation to explore enjoyment, which often deepens rapport. 9 out of 10 people, 9 out of 10 persons enjoy talking about, what they love doing at the end of the day. So according to experts, questions that tap into what someone likes shows a lot of emotional intelligence. So use it in a more relaxed or social setting when you want to shift away from work-centric talk and allow them to talk about their interests, their hobbies. I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, remember to always use a friendly, curious tone. You might add, if you don't mind me asking. You might add this particular phrase, if you don't mind me asking, to soften if you're not so sure. If you don't mind me asking, what have you been doing lately that you're enjoying? Perfect. Let's get to the next phrase. How's your week been so far? The question is very specific enough to invite a real answer, but broad enough to also give them freedom to do what? To share. To give them freedom to share. So they'll be picky, about what they want to share. And at the end of the day, remember, they have the freedom to tell you whatever they have been up to that week. So that specificity improves depth in small talk. Now, you can use this particular phrase in midweek or near, end of the week in casual, social, or professional settings where you see the person regularly. Remember, you have to be seeing this person regularly. And then it is actually far much better than how are you, which can evoke that reflexive, good response. Good. Not bad. Okay. Just hanging in there. That is what we want to avoid whenever you're having a conversation with someone. So you use a casual conversational tone, and you might lean in a bit or nod as you ask to show genuine concern. Do not forget about that aspect. Lean in a little bit to show genuine concern. Perfect. Let's get to the next phrase. What's been keeping you busy lately? This particular phrase moves the conversation from idle greetings to real content. It invites you to learn what matters to them. Okay? It invites you to learn what matters to them. And I told you earlier about emotional intelligence. And most importantly, emotional intelligence literature states that noticing what the other person is engaged in is a key part of deeper connection. Always rely on that. So you use it when you suspect the person is involved in multiple activities, or something has changed in their lives, and you need to use an interested tone. You might add, I noticed you have been. If you have observed something, you might want to start with that. So I noticed you have been missing in action. What's been keeping you busy lately? Perfect. Let's get to the next phrase. Is there anything you are looking forward to this week? Is there anything you're looking forward to this month? This is a future-oriented question, and it tends to open a new dimension of the conversation. Okay? When people are talking about their plans, hopes, their feelings, it actually opens the conversation to a new dimension rather than dwelling on what's already done, the past, which most people don't always like to talk about. So I always like to refer to it as the what's next mindset. Is always recommended in conversational frameworks. Never forget about that. So you use this particular phrase when transitioning from past talk into future-oriented conversations. So it's very good in social or professional check-ins, and you use, or rather put it out with a positive and slightly energetic tone, looking forward to, rather than have planned, to keep it light. It could be like, is there anything you're looking forward to this week? Okay, and then give them a chance to share and just tell you more. Let's get to the next phrase. How are you finding dash dash dash? Now, at the very end where I put the dash, you need to put in, or rather replace the dash with some recent change or event. A quick example in sentence: how are you finding the city since you moved? Very genuine, straightforward, deliberate, intentional. It gives the other person a huge room, right, to share more about their experience. So asking about how the other person, the other person's experience, it invites emotion, reflection, and that experience, not just in the plain way that you would want to put it. Did you move? You'll be like, how is it going for you? How are you finding the city since you moved? And remember to ask how they are experiencing a change, or event, a given change or an event. And at the end of the day, also, you get to use this particular phrase when the person has undergone a change, started something new, or you suspect they are adopting to something different. So you need to use a tone of genuine interest and acknowledgement of the change. A tone of genuine interest and acknowledgement of the change. You'll be like, I saw you moved recently. So how are you finding the city since you moved? Perfect. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get to the next phrase, which happens to be our last phrase for the day, definitely. What's something that made you smile this week? What's something that made you smile this week? It's a positive, focused question, that aligns with the human positivity bias in language. And it also encourages sharing of small joys, small wins, which builds a connection at the end of the day. It is in the tiny little things, that people find joy. So when you give somebody a platform to share, about those tiny, small wins, then definitely you get to build that conversation in a meaningful way. So remember to use this particular phrase when you want a positive, emotionally engaging, and open-ended question. It is very great for a casual social, catching up, or whenever you're trying to lift somebody's mood. Okay. And don't forget to use a warm tone, and then you pause after the smile, so they can reflect. Pause after the word smile so that they can reflect. You'll be like, what's something that made you smile this week? Definitely, they have to be all ears, all heels to give you proper information about their week. Ladies and gentlemen, up to that point, it has been an absolute pleasure having you for this episode. And remember, this is James Intercontinental, Gardner's English Mastery School Intercontinental, where we learn English the practical, conversational way. So thank you for staying tuned till the end. See you the next time. Bye bye.